One of the questions you will find on the Revit Certified User Exam is how to create an array. An array is used to create multiple copies of an item a specified distance apart. So for example, if I am designing a school classroom, I would create an array of a student desk instead of having to create each one of them individually, one at a time, obviously, and then take the time to space them out equally. That could take a while. In this example, I have a desk placed and I want to create, let's say, 4 columns 10 feet apart and 3 rows spaced 8 feet apart. And when I say spaced apart, I mean the center of one desk to the center of the other, not the actual space in between each one, if that makes sense. So let me demonstrate how that is done. So it will make your life easier when you're kind of designing a classroom or putting in lights for, ceiling panels or what have you. So the first thing that I want to do to create this array is I'm going to click on the item that I want to make an array of. And then what you would want to do is you could type in AR as a shortcut for the array. And then you'll get your array items here. If you can't remember what the shortcut is, then you just select your item. And then up in the modify panel here, look for the 4 squares that look like a kind of a waffle pattern. So I would select those. And so to complete the items here that we want, so I'm going to make 4 columns. So I'm going to type in 4 for the number here. And then I'm going to make sure where it says move to, I'm going to have the second kind of bulleted here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to select where you want your start point of your array. So I'm just going to select the center of this table or the midpoint here. And then I'm going to drag it out 10 feet. So the center of one table to the center of the other is 10 feet. And then I'm just going to select it. And then because I told Revit that I want 4 of those, it's going to space 4 tables out 10 feet apart, kind of center to center. So that's kind of how you do the first part. And then I'm gonna click on modify to get out of that command. So to create our columns, or our rows, I'm sorry. So columns are standing straight up, kind of like if you think about Roman, the Parthenon, or you have those Roman columns, they stand straight up. So, and then the rows, if you think about rows like a rowboat, those are kind of lengthwise in the water. So rows are kind of going from left to right or right to left, columns up and down. So sometimes I get confused, as you just saw as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these tables and then go to my array. And then for the number here, I want 3 of these rows. And then I'll make sure my move to is also selected for second. And then I'm going to select just the midpoint of this table here and then drag it down. So we want to have these 8 feet apart. So from center to center, 8 feet. So I'm going to drag down to 8 feet, or I could type it in. I'm going to move it down to 8 feet. I'm going to left click, and then Revit knows that I want 3 rows of these 8 feet apart. So that's kind of an easy way to create your classroom tables. Let me hit the modify to get out of that command. So it kind of spaces them out nice and neat. Every single one is the same exact spacing in between. And you just tell it what number you want. You can also click it again and you can change if you come back later and you say, oh, I don't want 4, I want 5, you can make that happen real easy that way. So what I found on the Revit Certified User Exam is there's 2 different methods that they have asked in the past. I made a rhyme there. Asked in the past to test your knowledge over the array command. So I'm gonna show you that next. So let me get rid of these. I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna delete this for here. I'm gonna ungroup these. So now I can delete each one individually. Delete that one. I can select this. I can go So on the Revit Certified User Exam, that's a mouthful. One of the ways that it could ask you to prove your knowledge of the array command is it's going to tell you, okay, I want you to create a certain amount of items a certain distance apart. So that's kind of like what I showed you. So I'm going to select what I want to array, and then I'm going to go up to the little waffle array. Also, you can type in AR here. And then let's say that we want 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say we want 5 total. And we want those to be 10 feet apart. So I'm going to enter 5 here. I'm going to pick my center point, or anywhere really, as my base point, and just kind of drag over 10 feet. And then left click. And so it'll kind of space those out evenly. So what Revit would probably ask you to prove your knowledge of, if you did that correctly, is it would probably ask you, what is the distance between like the last table in the wall or the last table in another item? So then you would just kind of select your table, click the little ruler. You might select that. It might ask you for the very end of this table to the face of the wall. So that would be 2 foot 5.5. So it's going to somehow, it's going to want you to prove that you do that correctly. So it'll ask you maybe to dimension something at the end of that. And then the other way, which is probably the one that I've seen the most, let me get rid of these, is it'll give you an item. So that's going to be where your item is going to start. And then it'll give you some place that it wants that item to end. Let's say this center line here. And then it'll say, okay, I want you to, tell me what the spacing is if you were to create like 5 of those. So kind of like what we did, but a little different. So I'm going to click on my table here. I'm going to go up to the array. So for this one, I'm going to click the last. I want to move to last. And let's say I want 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5. So here you would select where you want it to start. And I'm going to drag where I want the last one to be. So the center is going to be way over here. So this is where I want the array to end. And then it's going to put the ones in between the number that you specified. And it's going to calculate kind of the distance between each one. So then usually it'll say, okay, what's the spacing between one table and the next? So I'll just click a table. I will click my little ruler. Click maybe the midpoint of one table, the midpoint of the other, and that's 10 feet, right? So those are the 2 different methods, or 2 different ways that you could see pop up for you on the Revit Certified User Exam. So it's important to know how to do those and know how to do them kind of fast, because you only have like under 2 minutes for each question because the time limit it's a little tricky. So I hope that helped.